So while I'll come to the state of Hindus in a Hindu state in a short while, one of the things that I want to start this off with is that that upward video that you recently made, where you touched upon several points, including how unity, which is the buzzword, everybody wants to say that we have to have unity and all of those things, and okay, so all of this, but you said that unity is a mirage. It's not something that is that has happened, or is it something that's going to be happening. But you also make the point, you also say that it is something that is obvious, but it doesn't seem to be obvious to most people, particularly those who believe that we have Shivaji Maharaj right now in office, rather a version of Shivaji Maharaj in office, and therefore everything is fine. So what is the politics of it, as you understand it, and why are so many of us so gullible? And
yeah, well, I mean, when you say they are gullible, I may not want I may not want to comment on that, because it may so turn out that we are the ones who are gullible.
Oh, but yeah, that's right? Perfectly possible. So, yeah, I think that's another question that we are going to come to very soon also. Right.
But as I explained in that pinpoint video that you're talking about, the underlying cause for this kind of sloganeering about Hindu unity is a total absence of collective goals, right? Human biology dictates large-scale cooperation with fellow humans, right? And therefore politics. Right. We are hardwired to do politics, to ally with other people with common objectives, and to define our in-group and our out-group. And so this choice of who is part of the in-group and who is not, who is a friend, who is an enemy, who's a competitor and who's a ally, right? So this is critical to human flourishing at a collective level. And it is also very important for the psychological well-being of an individual, right? So in other words, people attach meaning to their lives by being part of a larger group and doing their bit to achieve the objectives of that group. And that much, I think, is pretty much undisputed. So now let's see how Hindus define their objectives. And as I expressed my contention in that video as well, is that today Hindu society has no real objectives. By real objectives, I mean objectives that are based on an understanding of the challenges that we face as a collective. So if we were to pose questions to ourselves today about our relationship with nature, about the extinction of 100,000 species happening every year from the biosphere, about the degradation of soil, water, and air, right? Or in another direction, about how we think of big tech, about artificial intelligence. How do we deal with the intrusion of media and associated propaganda right into our bedrooms? And most importantly, how that manipulates the thoughts of the impressionable minds of our own children, right? Or let's say of the growing gap between the wealth, between the rich and the poor, right? The ethics of anti-aging technology. So, you get the picture, right? There's just so many questions, so many uncertainties that we are dealing with, and so many emergent phenomena that we need to find the answers to these questions. What are our proposals as Hindus? what are the answers that a literate Hindu with a fancy college degree who also votes for the right party and has all the tick marks in the checklist of being a Hindutvavadi, what answer is he likely to give, if any? So, right. So that's one. That's one. Now,
so answers to these questions, or rather the problems that you have pointed to.
No, so that's, I'm just saying that these are questions that we need to deal with, right? So these are like, these would define our objectives, right? There are many others. There's the question of demography. There is, like Hindu-Muslim coexistence and all that, the political sphere, all that. But I'm just saying that there are so many questions that we need an answer to that would define our objectives. Now, at the same time, we have a very long history of conflict with Islam that more and more people are getting to know of, or they already know. The Ram Janmabhoomi movement, that was the foundation on which the BJP built its political empire, was nothing but the Hindu-Muslim historical conflict, right? So, given this reality, it is clear that the outgroup in this context is the Muslim community, right? And since there is no objective, there are no objectives that that our in-group has defined for itself, there is a psychological vacuum, which is filled by pseudo-objectives defined merely by opposing the objectives of the outgroup. So if Muslims do animal sacrifice on Eid, we must not do animal sacrifice. If they oppose state interference in religious matters, we must encourage it. If Muslims practice polygamy, we must impose monogamy, even on Hindu communities that used to practice polygamy. Take another example, right? You have another outgroup in the name of Global Handmaiden of Islam, that is the left in all its shades, right? Here too, if the left talks of environmental destruction, political Hindus are quick to deny it. And they will endorse state action that destroys forests and rivers, right? So this whole Hindutva politics has gone too far in opposing the outgroups without defining their own goals, which should be based on Hindu Dharma, right? So we are in a situation where if, let's say, Muslims were to say that we will allow selling pork outside mosques in the hypothetical situation, Hindus would willingly concede space for, they will cede space for cow slaughter outside temples. That's the sad reality. And if anyone points that out, he becomes an enemy of unity. So that's the politics of unity.
So I'm laughing because I'm trying to the wheels are kind of turning in my head in terms of all of the things you said and how you brought it around to finally this. But just to play the devil's advocate here, and sir, it's only why it's political power is everything, right? Only if you are in power politically that you can do anything. And this is not my thoughts. I'm just playing the devil's advocate. I'm talking like them now. And I'm saying, so we are in political power now. So why are you so impatient?
Well, like
slowly we will, all of these things. It's not that we don't know. Don't think that you know everything. We know all of these things, but we are coming to it, and we are going to address each one of these things one at a time.
No, correct. I mean, if that is the case, then I am absolutely happy, and I admit that I am wrong then. but for the last so many years, Hindu society, forget about a political party as such, but Hindu society has not engaged with these questions seriously.
Right.
And politics is just a manifestation of that. It's not like you would expect a politician to take on these challenges. A politician will only parrot what is being said outside by people, what is normal. Some politicians may want to ban Kanyadan, but that is not because that's their original thought. They are just pleasing what they think is their constituency. And if there is a large enough section of Hindu society which really believes that Kanyadan is derogatory to the dignity of women, then the politician will just parrot that line. So, the crisis is deeper than just, politicians or someone being in
Right.
power. And while they are in power, and like you said, we are, they're free to do anything, but that anything needs to be defined, because if it is not defined, then it will actually be anything.
and it's anything that is actually being played out, but we'll come to that in a short while. One of the things that really struck me, I've been following your articles on caste and other things. I had some thinking on caste. I know there are several people who think, but the point that you made that really made a deep impression was that about, according to me, the most elegant argument that was made on caste, not just in this video, but also in those series of articles. I don't know how many have actually read it, the Cast in Stone articles. I understand that it's also going to get repurposed into a book, if I'm not wrong.
Not repurposed. We're going to write the book.
You're going to write it. So you said, that the only functional unit of groupishness among Hindus is this entire caste system. And we are looking to break that unit. And, I also made the argument, I don't know if that is correct, is that one of the reasons perhaps that we survived, unlike several others, the repeated onslaughts, is perhaps because we were, in all of these multiple units that closely guarded their own, culture, traditions, and all of those things. Perhaps that is also the reason why we survived, and not just our ability to fight this one. Given that we have lost geography, we've lost so much of all of it. So, but what I also find is that not many people, because I've one of the things I tried is to ask present your point of view before I came on this to quite a few people, but they don't seem to actually understand what you're saying. And perhaps I was not articulate enough to unpack it in the way that you are seeing it, because I see exactly what you're seeing, but I'm not able to say it in those terms. So I want you now to, if you could, to just unpack what you're saying and why you think we are in a sense making an error in trying to use this to beat our own selves with.
Right. So the question of caste is, of course, very contentious, very complicated, because the subject itself is quite complicated. The tragedy is that caste has been made into a meme, and that the contribution to that effect has come primarily from colonial scholarship, followed by post-colonial scholarship led by the left, right? And since Hindus have really not contributed to this academic work, therefore they are consumers of this kind of scholarship. We were just a while ago on the question of unity. We were talking about this, appropriating of the objectives, or inverting the objectives of the outgroup, right?
Right.
What is strange about this is that when it comes to objectives of the outgroup, you oppose those objectives purely because it is from the outgroup, without any critical analysis of your own. But when there is criticism from the outgroup of your own way of life, of your system of thought and all that, that criticism is swallowed uncritically. So for example, when they talk about, Hinduओं के तो करोड़ों देवी देवता होते हैं, ये क्या बकवास है, the Hindus will go into a defensive mode saying that नहीं करोड़ नहीं है, वो एक ही है, फिर वो ऐसे होता है. Right? Similarly, when they talk about idol worship, then Hindus will go and they'll not say that we worship stones, तुम्हारा क्या जा रहा है, मान लिया हम stone worship करते हैं यार. Okay, but they'll say, no, 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 it is just a representation of divinity. It is only a symbol. You see, it is not, I mean, for us, it is not a symbol. It is the manifest God out there. You are,
right.
It's actually, you're worshipping the prana in that, right?
Correct.
Similarly, the issue with caste, that whatever has been thrown at you, all the labels, all the allegations, all the propaganda has been internalized. Now, polytheism naturally allows for diversity and, let's say, a multiplicity of identities within the same person. Like Hindu identity itself is a mesh of identities. And for example, you could be a Vaishnava merchant, right, with an interest in Sri Vidya Upasana. And you could also be a prominent member of your jati, or you're the prominent member of your own village or town or whoever, right? Like in our research on caste, when we were studying Barabalutadari system and the Jajmani systems, we came across some fieldwork studies where it was documented that in the typical village setup, when there were wrestling contests between two villages, people would support their own village rather than their own caste. So that's a complex thing. So in which context do you put one identity on top of another? Which identity gets primacy in a certain context? So a polytheistic society is like that. You have that multiplicity inside you, and you are free to choose how you want to be seen in a certain context, or how do you see yourself in a certain context. Now, but since custom is deeply linked with your lifestyle, which is itself dependent to a great extent on your occupation. So your caste identity pretty much described in the past who you were in worldly terms, your tastes, your attire, your cuisine, your custom. And if you go through the records of Christian missionaries, there was an excellent article published on Pragyata written by Ali Kalyan and Sai Priya, where they had actually they had documented the entire, but a long list of quotes by Christian missionaries talking about caste and how
in fact, I did speak to Sai Priya. One of the conversations were about him. Yeah.
Right. So they'd done a beautiful job in documenting that. And you go missionary after missionary, when you read them, you will find them exasperated by this phenomenon of caste. Now, caste today no longer determines the occupation, especially in urban areas, but it is still inextricably connected to your cultural inheritance, whatever that may be. Annihilating caste is therefore akin to destroying your pride in your own culture and creating an even more atomized society. And let me make no bones about it. The most important factor for Hindus surviving the onslaught of Abrahamic madness is caste. At least caste, as far as I understand.
No, I think we both agree. I think I made that opening.
And that's because of its hold over custom. You see, losing your caste meant losing your community, which no one could afford, right? When we wrote in the Caste and Stones series, we wrote an article on Shudras, and we mentioned Shudra pride. That if you look at the inscriptions from various medieval temples, you will find that the artisans and the artists, they have their own inscriptions. They describe their work, they describe their place in society, how they see themselves and all that. And it's full of pride, full of Shudra pride, right? But when we wrote that article, someone very well educated, very well read, he wrote that, what pride can a washerman have in washing clothes? Right. That's a legitimate question. Yeah. I don't know what pride a washerman would have. Maybe he has, maybe he doesn't. But this is reducing the debate. This is reducing the complexity again to a meme. We are saying that Shudras were proud people, whether they were proud of their work, they were proud of their identity, they were proud of their skill, or they were just content with being who they were. But it's not that they were oppressed in the sense that it is described today. But then, all the rhetoric around caste today, all the academic discourse around caste today is so skewed and is so anti common sense that you don't know how to even respond. So that's precisely what prompted us to write a book on this. And hopefully, I don't know if the book will create an impact or whatever, but we are just doing it as something that is out there to be written. This is something we see, so it has to be written. Maybe some people will benefit from it.
No, quite a few people actually would benefit if they actually approached this whole question with an open mind. I think that the issue is that people are not willing to. They have swallowed all the tropes that they have been told. They have been told that there was discrimination, there was this. I see many people, even with people who are normally very, very clear about how the dharma is played out and about dharma and all of those things, who continue to push the same tropes. They will continue to say that there is discrimination. They're not understanding the subtle point about, we are not saying that there was absolutely no discrimination. That's not the point of any of all of this. What we're saying is that also understand that there are two sides to the issue, which is what, as I understand it, there are two sides to it, and people are not seeing the other side at all, or refusing to see it, precisely because they have swallowed this whole belief that, all of them think, if I am a Brahmin, I am told that I've been the oppressor, and therefore I must be apologetic now for something imagined, something that I don't even know if my ancestors did or not, but is something that I have to be apologetic for, and I have to pay the price for it for eternity.
Correct. No, so it's not. So it's not even that. It's worse, because this is the kind of argument that white Americans, for example,
right,
would give. White conservative Americans would say that, okay, something happened, slavery was there, and why should we pay the price for it? So it is a faulty argument that way. But that is not the case with caste. Caste is not slavery, first of all, right?
Absolutely.
So that's the fundamental difference. What is the institution meant to be? What was it? How did it evolve? And what was that evolutionary journey like, right? What was the primary purpose of its design? That's the thing, no? It's like saying, I often give that example, that if there is a shoe factory and you buy a shoe of a certain brand, and that shoe pinches you, you will say that the factory was installed to create a shoe that would bother me, right? That's the kind of argument that these people have swallowed about caste. Caste is not meant to be exploitative. It has a totally different function, and it has evolved organically over thousands of years. And you are passing a judgment on something that has actually worked for thousands of years. So the absurdity of the argument is just mind-boggling. And no one is saying that you need caste in that form today. We are not even talking about that. That's a different discussion altogether.
Right.
And that, I think, different people would have different views about that. But we are only saying that you first correct the understanding of the past, because even if you are to extend affirmative action reservation benefits to certain sections of society, and I'm not against that. And I've been criticized by people who follow our work, saying that you're too soft on these things, and it's not that. I do understand that India today has swathes of people, large sections of Hindu society does need a helping hand, and it's okay to give them that. It's okay to provide them reservation for 10 years, for 50 years, for 100 years. That is debatable, but yeah, do it. But don't do it on the premise that my ancestors are responsible for it.
Right.